Well, good morning. Today is the 30th of January 2025, and I really think I need to make a few comments on the Metro and the system itself. In other words, where it could go into the future, and a number of concerns as well. Now, a couple of Brisbane bus drivers, Brisbane BCC bus drivers that I know, and I will not name here, have told me that the BCC has overcome the problems of lithium batteries exploding and burning. In other words, your electric cars, your EVs as they call them, and scooters, are blowing up all around the world, and they claim that they've been told that this has been overcome. Well, we hope and pray, quite literally, that we won't get an explosion and burning of a Brisbane Metro bus, or call it a day trackless tram if you like. It'd probably be better to be described as that, in a tunnel somewhere, and have multiple deaths. Now, either they are right or wrong about this, because I know a couple of people who've told me, and this was not covered very well at all in the so-called mainstream media, that a shipload of electric cars was being taken, I think, from China to Australia. And at one point some cars exploded and began burning, of course. Well, the solution was, in a sense, quite brutal and straightforward. Push the cars overboard and let them sink to the bottom of the ocean. Now, a lot of apartments and buildings will not allow electric vehicles to park in their parking stations, as it were, under the building, perhaps, for the very reason that they may explode and burn. Now, if, and I think logic tells you this, if the Brisbane City Council have fixed the problem and is alleged that they have a cooling system and an alarming system that says when it gets overheating on the battery, a warning is given, and the vehicle must be pulled over, and, in other words, at the next station, turned off, and everybody evacuated from it, and then that substitute vehicle obviously would be found. If that happens, now this is a thing that seems to be alarming if it's the case, but so far so good. And by the way, I'd like to get, in a sense, and this is my own video from the past, so I'm not breaching any copyrights, I'd like to get to what you could describe as the more positive aspect of the new vehicles and the new system, and some ideas for the future. I travelled with my granddaughter on Monday, and we went out to UQ Lakes, and of course the Royal Brisbane Hospital, the Women's Hospital as well, on the services. And some people no doubt here have seen that. As far as I'm concerned, basically it's a pretty good system, and I think that when they get the tunnel completed, that will allow the joining of the inner north and the southeast busways, the operation actually of they call M1. The work on M2 is running, but M1 will commence operation. It'll be full-time, full scale, in other words, the whole thing as it is now with the M2. Well, that's good. It's like a testing ground, this busway operation. But what I believe will happen, and I think some of it is under construction even now, some of my friends who are the bus drivers that I'll send this to can confirm it, but the route up through Chermside is being converted for busway, I should say, bus lanes on the existing highway or main road, Gympie Road, I guess. That's good, and it'll be extended even further. Now, other routes such as Capalaba are said to be happening. I don't know how long this will take, but I would think if they really put some money and effort into it, probably only a matter of a few months, but I would think within 12 months they'll have a couple of new routes operating. Now, I'd like to see them operating out on basically over the current Route 100 to Forest Lake, but with some changes in the route. In other words, it would go down to Richland Station, then turn along and continue on to Forest Lake, as I said, the shopping centre, and to turn around and go back. Now, also the 460 that goes to that same destination, but via Toowong. In other words, it's very, very busy. The main point here is that they're very, very busy routes. They can be converted to metro. Call it a bus. It has some characteristics of a bus, yes, but you could call it a trackless tram if you like as well. But whatever name you call it by, it's still a revolutionary system. Yes, it has been used for a little while in some places in Europe, I understand several cities. And another important development over there is hybrid. And what they've done is got a diesel, or you can have gas, or later on when hydrogen is fully developed, that could operate as well as electric. And then you could see services going out to places like Ipswich on a limited stop basis. Somewhat different route than via the busways perhaps, but in fact they could go from a bus station outside Aroma Street railway station and go out through past Central Station, Fortitude Valley, over the Story Bridge, and limited stop, in other words the PA Hospital in Maruka, and then when you get down to places like Dinmore and so on, there'd be one stop per suburb into Ipswich. This would be actually a great backup to the railway, even in normal times, but in particular when those ridiculous, I should say, track closures occur. People, I know it's a different subject, but people say, what are you talking about ridiculous? They've got to repair the track. Well, anyone who's heard of the Shinkansen in Japan would realise we're talking about 15-car trains that running every 5 or 10 minutes at 300 kilometres an hour or more. When do they do their maintenance? Well, I'll tell you, it's at night time. And in Australia for about 60 years or more, they did maintenance by night time under floodlit conditions. So it can be done. And I'd like to see some people lobby to have it done in Queensland and in New South Wales, of course, and Victoria, where this is going on. But getting back to the metro, I would see the development of these systems in Sydney to routes such as out to Bondi Junction, Bondi Beach I should say, 333, very busy route with articulated buses and people standing up and rather than sitting, and I've actually experienced that. And then routes along Parramatta Road, and there are other places where they would need to create bus lanes that have concrete curbing, keeping the car traffic off it, in other words painted in a certain way, or putting in concrete curbing to reduce the possibility of anyone driving on it. And it would mean removal of car parking from some of those main roads, and the way to compensate for that is that every few kilometres you would have a situation where multi-storey car parks would be built. So therefore you'd have the metro buses running down each side of Parramatta Road, for example, and the normal car traffic up the middle as they do now, where anywhere they've got 3 lanes. If they've only got 2 lanes, well, you can't do it. But we're talking about main roads, and in some cases freeways, that could have metro service along them, and the metro could go off at a couple of locations and service places, then go back on. Now, one example of the type of operation I'm talking about is the routes 598 and 599, which travel along the Gateway arterial, including going over, of course, the Gateway Bridge. But they come off a couple of times and service areas that and come straight back onto the Gateway. So there would be occasions when this would happen. Now, in Melbourne, they are intending to look at building a trackless tram from Caulfield out to Railville. Well, they could use a Brisbane METRO bus type system that'd do a perfect job. It'd be a double articulated electric vehicles that feel, by the way, if you happen to be a train or a tram enthusiast, they feel like riding in a train or a tram. They're smooth and quiet, and they're frequent. We're talking in terms of a service about every 4 to 7 minutes. So that could be adopted in Victoria, it could be adopted in New South Wales, it could be adopted in Perth, it could be adopted in Adelaide. Ideally on the O-Bahn, they could operate on that, and then they could continue on to places like Elizabeth and Salisbury. And they'd be double articulated electrics. Now in Adelaide, the O-Bahn has turned into an old-fashioned, in a sense, but useful to a degree, transport system. But limited only as far as it operates, and then they have single buses, and others called rigid buses, that's 2 axles, and some articulateds running along it, but they're not taking advantage of the system when it could be, as I said, double articulated electric metro bus or trackless tram type of technology. So I thought I'd make these comments and have people discussing that if they like. I'd appreciate civil and polite comments and discussion. So I'm putting those ideas out there and a couple of concerns that I mentioned initially, and I'd be happy to talk online with various people who are interested. So thank you for viewing.